Hello and welcome to another Zatu Games How to Play video. I'm Tom. This is my lockdown hair and this is how to play Star Realms. What is Star Realms? Star Realms is a two-player deck builder game where each player will take on the role of a fleet captain. The aim of the game is to try and knock your opponent's health down to zero before they manage to do the same to you. On your turn, you'll be playing cards from your hand down and using their abilities to either buy new cards, attack your opponent, or heal yourself up. But let's take a closer look at that in more detail. So, before we get started, let's have a look at some of the cards you can expect to find in a game of Star Realms. First things first, you've got your health cards. These are double-sided, with one set having 20 and 10 on them, and the others having 1 and 5. You'll use these to keep track of your remaining health. Depending on the versions of Star Realms that you own, you may also have some health cards that look a bit like this. With these ones, you slide the cards over each other to keep track of your health instead. The main deck of cards in the box is the ship deck. Most of the cards will be coloured either red, yellow, blue or green to align with one of the 4 factions of the Star Realms universe. There are, however, also unaligned ships. 2 of the 3 types of these unaligned ships will form your starter deck, while the other one will sit next to the trade row as an extra option to buy. If we take a closer look at these ship cards, they have a few things on them to consider. The first thing you'll probably notice is the orientation of the cards is different. Some of the cards are landscape and others are portrait. The landscape cards are bases and the portrait cards are ships. I'll come back to the difference between these in a little bit. Let's have a look at some of the information on these cards and what it all means. Firstly, in the top left you have the alignment symbol of the card, and also notice how this grey unaligned card has no symbol up here. That's because it's unaligned. On the top right of the card you've got the cost of this card. This is called the trade value, and again notice how the unaligned card doesn't have a cost. This is because this particular card is part of your starting deck and therefore can't be bought during the course of the game. In the middle of the card you've got some lovely artwork, and then at the bottom you've got the card abilities. Now every card will have at least one ability, but it could have up to 3. The top ability tells you what you get when you play the card down. This could be trade value, used for buying new cards, combat value, which is used for attacking your opponent, or influence. Influence is what this game calls health, and a card that grants you influence gets you extra health, and there's no upper limit to your health either. Some cards will also have other abilities that are pretty self-explanatory. This one, for example, lets all of your ships have an additional combat power. The next kind of ability is called an ally ability. This one has a faction symbol next to it. If you have another card played into your area that matches this faction, you can get this ability too. The last action is called the trash action, and has this symbol here. This is an optional ability that allows you to permanently remove this card from the game in order to gain its benefit. Lastly, if we come over to the bases, we'll see that they have a health value. When you play a ship card down into your play area, at the end of your turn, they go into your discard pile. That isn't the case with bases though, as these cards will get played down in front of you and will stay there until they are destroyed. Then, if they get destroyed, then they go into your discard pile. The health value is how much combat needs to be played against them to destroy them, and you need to play all of it in one turn. Basically, any damage that you do to one of these cards will be healed at the end of the round, and you'll have to try again next time. You can also see that one of these bases is marked as an outpost. Outposts are an important way of a player defending themselves. You see, if you to attack a player who has an outpost, that combat damage must be applied to the outpost first, with any remaining combat damage being dealt to the player. That isn't the case with a non-outpost base though. With a non-outpost base, the attacking player can choose to attack either the base or the player, and it's the attacker's choice. And that's pretty much it for the cards. We can now look at how to set up the game and how to play. First things first, give each player their starting deck. This will contain 8 scout ships and 2 vipers. Then shuffle this personal deck up and draw 5 cards. This is your starting hand. In the middle of the table, place the stack of 10 explorer cards and the shuffled trade deck. Draw the top 5 cards from the trade deck and lay them out. This is now called the trade row. Then make sure each player has their life counter set to 50 health and you're now ready to play. On your turn, you can play down cards from your hand using their primary ability when you do so. You can also use abilities from any bases you've got played down in your area. Use an ally or scrap ability of any cards that you have in play. Use any trade that you have to buy cards from the trade row. And finally, you can use your combat value to attack your opponent. If you do successfully attack your opponents, they adjust their life counter accordingly, and any bases you destroy go into their discard pile. You can do this in any order that you please. When you buy a card from the trade row, you should immediately replace it, making sure there are always 5 cards in the trade row. If you manage to empty the trade deck, you don't refill the cards, but you do keep what is still there. This is incredibly rare though. Once you're done with your turn, put all your ships in the discard pile, making sure to leave any non-destroyed bases in front of you, and draw a new hand of 5 cards. If there is not enough cards in your draw deck to make it up to your 5-card hand, draw what you can and then shuffle up your discard pile, flip it over, and this becomes your new draw deck. Take however many cards that you need to get you up to your hand limit of 5 cards, and you're now done with your turn. And it's your opponent's time to fight back. It's very important that you draw your hand at the end of your turn, as your opponent may play some cards that make you discard cards from your hand. So you need to have a hand for them to be able to do this. And that's basically it. You go back and forth until one player is reduced to 0 authority. As a tip to new players to get started, it's very useful to try and build your deck around 1 or maybe 2 factions. Each of the factions has its own speciality which may match your style of play. The green blob cards are all about big attacks and trashing cards out the trade row. The blue Trade Federation cards are all about generating authority and trade value to buy new cards. The yellow Star Empire is good at combat as well as making your opponent discard cards from their hand, which is either incredibly annoying or funny depending if you're on the receiving end of it or not. Lastly, the red machine cult have very strong bases and are good at trashing your own cards. This can be useful for getting rid of some of your weaker early cards, so you're more likely to draw your stronger endgame cards on your turn. And that's it. That's how you play a 2-player game of Star Realms. The base set has everything you need to get started, but there are smaller expansions out there which add new mechanisms like events or even secret missions. There are also 2 large box standalone expansions which add different card sets, or you can combine them to play up to a 6-player game, as well as a few cooperative modes if you go for the Frontier expansion. Anyway, that's it. I hope you found this guide useful, and thank you ever so much for watching.